All right, in this video, we're going to talk about how we can create instances slash examples of the profiles that we create in Fish. And so on the left-hand side is an example of a screenshot of different patient examples from the patient profile in FHIR. So you can see on the bottom there's just a bunch of different examples. And on the right-hand side is just one of those examples. And so let's actually jump back into Simplifier to show how we can do this. So you can actually keep building onto this. And in this case, I already have my patient profile here. And this will be very nice because as I build my instance, it will allow me to validate to these profiles that I have written. This becomes very unwieldy once you have a lot of different FHIR artifacts. So you probably want to move over to your own local instance of a sushi project, which I'll show you in a future video on how to do. But for now, this is perfectly fine because we have a profile and we're just going to create an instance for it. So let's start back out by doing our basic declarations. I'm not gonna spell it out this time. I'm just gonna have a comment here for my patient example. And to write an instance, keep in mind we're gonna do declaration. This is an instance, and we're gonna do a example. This is gonna be the name, Luke Skywalker. We do a instance of, which is my first keyword, and we're gonna do this to be the profile that I created earlier. So it's my patient profile. And then I always have to say, whenever I'm creating instances, the usage is an example. Okay, now let's start the rules. Let me actually play this real quick. So what it's probably gonna tell me is that I have errors because this instance for this profile does not meet the minimum requirements for that profile, which is like different required data elements in there. So identifier, name, and deceased. So I'm gonna make sure I add that in there to conform to my profile. So let me just go ahead and start typing this in. So I want identifier.system. I'm just gonna make up some example values here for the purposes of this demo. Let's give that a try. There you go, resolved one of them because now my identifier is populated. Now let's do family name is Skywalker. Given name is Luke. There we go. That identify that. And we only have deceased left. And if you're wondering why it's only deceased, there is yeah, that's why. So telecom is actually not required here because telecom is optional in base FHIR, but when telecom is required, then system and value is required. That's why I only get one error here, just in case you're wondering. But I'm going to add telecom anyways. Actually, no, let's just skip it. No, let's add it because I actually want to show you an example here. So let's say we did telecom system and telecom value is you are not my father at gmail.com. Let's go ahead and try that. And so what happens here, you can see, I forgot to mention, Simplifier is really nice because it tells you the exact location of where these errors are occurring. So you can kind of tell, especially when you have a long file, it's very helpful. So the very first thing is the value does not match in this string value for this telecom. And so what I want to point out here, if I go to Google and I go look at patient resource FHIR and I go to telecom, where's telecom? Telecom. Oh, here it is. Telecom has a data type of contact point. And in contact point, they have the system and value. However, system here is bound to a value set of contact point system, which means I can't just make up anything for here because it has this type of code and it's bound to this value set. So it must be one of these. So I'm trying to do an email. And when you're doing a fish for a data element that has this type of code bound to a value set, you have to represent the codes not using quotations, but rather the pound sign. So now Fish interprets this as email is a code. So if I do that, that goes ahead and resolves that. So just keep in mind Whenever you're dealing with codes, you need to make sure you have a pound sign. Okay, let's move on. We just need the deceased, and this one is deceased because we only have it as Boolean. You have to specify the type. So deceased Boolean equals false. And there you go. Now I have an example instance for my patient profile.